Welcome back to PRE, Prince Reacts Entertainment. Today we're reacting to a video by Manosphere Highlights Daily. It's called British Women Are the Angriest in Europe. Here's why they're wrong about why. Here's why they're wrong about why. Great title, Manosphere Highlights Daily. Let's get in.
Apparently, we have been officially labelled the angriest women in Europe.
Just why are women in the UK so furious?
There's now an anger gap. Women are angrier than men. Just over the last few years, this has happened across the Western world.
A quarter of females in the UK reported feelings of rage compared to just 1 in 7 on the continent.
British women as well, I was thinking about this, are starting to become quite famous for their anger.
Are you surprised by that, Marielle? Are you an angry woman?
Oh, I'm very angry.
This is pure gold. Yes, yes. British women are officially the angriest in Europe, nearly 1 in 4 filled with rage, and that number jumped 47% in just 1 year. Meanwhile, the rest of Europe stayed completely stable.
Nearly 1 in 4 of us are filled with rage compared to just 1 in 7 on the continent.
It's a weird stat. Like, why would you be rageful and why would you even ask? I swear, people have way too much time on their hands. Like, people are being asked, why are you filled with, well, are you rageful? Okay. I mean, no. If you are, then why? I mean, it can't just be because of men.
I might have some ideas. Here are 7 reasons why women are mad as hell.
Now, before we get into the 7 reasons this woman gives for why British women are so angry, I want to ask one question that nobody in any of these clips asks. If British women have more rights, more education, more career opportunities, and more legal protections than any generation of women in history.
Speaking of that, I think they did a stat back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s when women supposedly had no rights or less rights. When, let's be honest, women had just as many rights back then. They just weren't working as much, and that's the difference. Working outside the home. Men typically work outside the home where women typically work inside the home. And for some reason, a lot of modern women don't consider housework or taking care of the kids or being a housewife as work when in reality it is work. It's not as physically demanding as most jobs that men did, and especially back then, back in the manufacturing days, back in the coal, when jobs were mainly physical. Once the internet became popular, once salesmen and telephones became a thing, you could you know you could do jobs from home, or you could do jobs in the office, accounting, telemarketer, door-to-door salesman. They're they're less physical jobs. They're more mentally draining, but I mean they're still jobs. But yeah, I mean women were happier when they weren't expected to work outside the home. And once women fought for equality and chose to work outside the home, that's when their happiness went from here to it quickly dwindled down, in a very short time span. Because women have always worked. But yeah. Let's get back to the video.
Why are they the angriest in Europe? That question does not get asked because the answer is uncomfortable. So instead, we get 7 reasons. Let's go through them one by one.
Ain't that a man?
Number 1, health. We moved this year on the Global Health Index from 41st position last year to 48th position, the lowest since they began collecting data 5 years ago. That pushes us out of the top third of all countries globally, which, considering we have the world's 5th largest economy based on GDP, is kind of a joke. But it's also not surprising when you consider NHS waiting lists. Bad for everyone, of course, but 57% of people on the waiting list, women. Of those who've been waiting a year or more for treatment, 58.1%, women.
Women live longer than men. They use the healthcare system more across their entire lifespan. Of course, they represent a larger share of waiting list. That is not oppression. That is utilization. Men die younger, develop heart disease earlier, have higher suicide rates, and retire sicker.
Yeah, men do not visit the doctor nearly as much as women do. Men tend to ignore like issues, ignore symptoms, unless it's like a dire situation. We typically do not go to the doctor. We don't see a need to. We'd rather tough it out, or like we just don't want to hear bad news as well. So it makes sense. And women tend to overreact over the smallest thing. So like they'll go doctor over a freaking I don't know a freaking stubbed toe or something that's
But there is no anger index for that. When women dominate a statistic, it is evidence of inequality. When men dominate a negative statistic, silence.
Number two, the gender pay gap. It still exists. It's still substantial.
the gender pay gap has been debunked numerous of times. Numerous of times. If women just did their research, they would know that the gender pay gap, when it was first introduced, they were doing an overall study of like men and women and like the overall hours, compared to the pay. When that's not the that's not the most accurate way to do it. The most accurate way to do it is to take each job and pretty much calculate how many hours they work and if they're doing overtime as well as their experience in that job. Like a woman that's worked at a company for a year compared to a guy that's doing the exact same job working there for 7 years. Of course he's going to get paid more because he has more experience and he might have you know what's it called he might have convinced the higher ups to pay him more. He might have negotiated a better salary, pretty much. Men are typically better at negotiating, and if we deem that something is unfair, we're more willing to speak up about it, despite the likelihood of us, losing our job. When women are more likely to play it safe, and they'll just accept the first offer that's given to them rather than disputing it and trying to negotiate something better.
It's 12.8%. It means that every year women miss out on around £2,500 on average and work for free for the first 6 weeks of the year. You're welcome, lads.
The foolishness. You're welcome, lads. I love that energy. So let me match it. You're welcome for working the dangerous jobs, the oil rigs, the construction sites, the sewers. Men die on the job at 11 times the rate of women. The gender death gap is real, and it never makes the anger index. When you control for occupation, hours worked, and experience, the pay gap nearly disappears. What remains is a choice gap.
Yeah, I think it's like a 0.1% difference overall. Once you calculate everything that Men's Spirit Highlights Daily said. So
Women choose different careers, different hours, and different risk levels. That is not oppression, that is preference. And preference has consequences.
yeah, I mean, of course, if you choose a more dangerous job, a more physically demanding job, that job will pay more than a job that's comfortable in an office, AC, sitting. I mean, it just makes sense. Like oil rig jobs where they work 3 months at a time or 6 months at a time, where you're working 12-hour days, 7 days a week. Of course, it's going to pay much more than a job that's in an office. You know, being a secretary or something like that. Like for example, trucking jobs that pay. They used to pay a lot more, but now the first year kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like overall, trucking does pay more than just like an average. Dental assistant, office assistant, secretary, etc.
You're welcome, lads.
I'm thinking the day to day things in all of our lives. Like you say, The trains maybe aren't working. There's a strike yesterday. The potholes on our roads.
Number 3, speaking of unpaid labour, women do 29% more unpaid caring responsibilities than men, and we also do double the amount of childcare.
You also lose money every child you have. 4% of your income, you lose every single child you
She's
have.
got me angry now.
It's
Women do more childcare because most women choose to. Research consistently shows that even in dual income households, women prefer to be the primary caregiver in the early years. That preference is valid, but you cannot simultaneously demand men do more childcare and maintain the expectation that the man who stays home while his woman works is not attractive.
I never understood the stat that said that women are more nurturing than men when statistically women commit way more infanticide, which is the murder of children, or kids under 2, because babies, toddlers. And also, I've taken care of a child for like 9 months, 10 months at a time, and I mean, from my experience, men are much more nurturing when it comes to babies because we're more like focused on that task, and we don't let our emotions take over. So I mean, I'm pretty sure I read a study that said men are better caregivers overall than women, and men are much more when it comes to single motherhood versus single fathers. Men raise men raise their children as a single parent compared to women raising children as a single parent.
The foolishness. Those two positions cannot coexist. And here is the line nobody will say on Loose Women. You cannot complain about doing childcare while also choosing to have children with a man who works long hours to provide for those children. The division of labor you are describing is the partnership. It just stopped feeling like one when the feminist narrative told women the domestic side of it was beneath them. You're welcome, feminists.
Number 4, we keep getting murdered by men. There's been 2 really high-profile cases just this week alone of men in the UK murdering their female partners. And in one study, looking at 23 European countries, the UK ranked 6th overall for the highest number of...
Women act like women don't kill men as well. Like that's just reality. Men kill women kill men kill men, women kill men, women kill children a lot more than men kill children. So like, okay, all because you have a few stats that say that, or a few instances of that happening recently, doesn't mean that all men are bad, that, all men are, going to be like, murdering women. I hate having to be careful about what I say on YouTube, but it is what it is.
femicides by a romantic partner or family member.
Men are 3 times more likely to be deleted overall. Men are the victims of the majority of violent crime in the UK. When a woman is deleted by a spouse, it is called a femicide and treated as a national crisis. When a man is deleted, and it happens far more frequently, it barely registers. The UK ranks 6th in Europe. That means 5 European countries have higher rates. Are those women angrier? No. So the deletion rate does not explain the anger gap. Next.
Number 5, we still keep getting blamed for the crappy actions of men. Just look at Nicola Sturgeon. Her estranged husband was found guilty of embezzling £400,000 from the SNP. But you'd think she'd done the crime from all the scrutiny she's been getting.
Oh my goodness! Nicola Sturgeon was the first minister of Scotland. Her husband embezzled £400,000 from the party she led. She is being asked questions about it. That is not because she is a woman. That is because she ran the organization. If a male prime minister's wife had stolen that money from his party, he would face exactly the same scrutiny. That is not sexism. That is accountability.
Wouldn't she have some knowledge of her husband doing that? Like, she'd have to be involved in some way. That just seems common sense. Like, they might not be able to prove it, but I mean, come on. It's common sense.
And accountability does not have a gender exemption. At least it shouldn't.
Number 6. Of rubbish paternity and maternity policies. A government committee even found last year that the UK has some of the worst parental leave policies in the developed world.
The UK
And men have no parental rights or very little. So okay.
has up to 52 weeks of statutory maternity leave with 39 weeks paid. That is among the most generous in the developed world. Paternity leave is 2 weeks. 2 weeks! The real inequality in parental leave policy disadvantages fathers, not mothers. But she is not angry about that because this conversation was never actually about equality. It was about benefits.
And finally, number 7, just gender equality in general. One major study last year found that looking across every single local authority in the UK, none of them had reached gender parity. And the saddest thing about all this is that everywhere that had the most amount of gender equality had the best outcomes for women and men. So higher pay, lower economic deprivation.
Women do not want gender equality. They want gender superiority. If they wanted gender equality, they would give men, certain rights when it comes to smothering a child. That's one way. If men had, what's it called, similar rights to women when it came to child support, men would not have to pay child support. Men would not have to take legal responsibility of the child after it's born, especially if they didn't want that child to begin with. Like, okay.
More productivity. So yes, women are angry, but men maybe should be angry too.
Gender parity as a goal means equal numbers of men and women in every role, regardless of preference, aptitude, or choice.
Not a lot. I didn't really understand what gender parity meant. I also couldn't understand what she was saying because her accent's a little thick at times, but nothing against her personally, just, some accents are hard to understand for me.
That is not equality. That is a quota. And the places with better outcomes she mentions are richer places. Wealth produces better outcomes. Correlation is not causation, but nuance does not fit in a 2-minute video.
So I think the volume of expectation and responsibility that falls on women's shoulders is really quite shocking.
As well, because if you go abroad, whenever you go abroad on holiday and you see the Europeans, and it's 9, 10 o'clock.
I got a new mic as well with a pop filter. Let me know how it sounds. This is my third mic. I just can't find one that actually works. Well, it works the way I want it to work.
At night, and there's families sitting outside. They're not all in because of the weather, because the weather's lovely, and they all sit outside and they're all sociable with everyone, and there's no on their phones getting wound up by things or watching things on telly, and it's just much more for me when I see them, much more of a chilled, laid back, just family orientated life rather than us all sitting in because we're freezing and we can't sit outside in June.
But we can't do anything about the weather, can we?
Now here is the most interesting moment in all of these videos, and almost nobody noticed it. One of the women on that Loose Women panel accidentally identified the real answer while making a completely different point. She said, "When I go to Europe on holiday, I see families sitting outside together at 10 p.m. No phones, no rage scrolling, just community, just family." And she said it feels calmer. She is right, and she does not realize she just dismantled her own argument because that is not a policy difference. The Europeans she is describing are not angrier or less angry because of legislation. They are calmer because of culture, community, family structure, relationships that are not mediated by a screen.
When it comes to culture, there's a reason why throughout hundreds of thousands of years, men had a certain role and women had a certain role in society because those roles worked. Like once we got out of the comfortability, once once we got out of the uncomfortability of working and got into the more comfortable jobs, that's when women wanted equality. But when most jobs were, like I said earlier, more physical, women were happy to be at home. They were happy to, be at home cooking, cleaning, not, taking care of the kids, sewing, just doing day-to-day lives that help the overall family structure, including the husband. They actually enjoyed being a housemaker, a homemaker, being a loving wife, a loving mother, being nurturing. But now they see it as oppression once they can make more money than men doing less physically demanding jobs.
Feeding them outrage content 24 hours a day, which brings us to the part of this conversation that nobody in any of these clips wants to have.
What makes the good life? Does money buy happiness? Is happiness a choice? Which country is the happiest?
We compute the average life satisfaction within each country by taking the average response from roughly 1,000 people per year and look at how they evaluate their life as a whole on a one-item measure.
1,000 people is nothing. That's not enough to make a substantial difference, or to make to make that's not enough people to have a substantial survey of different personalities, different experiences, etc. 1,000 people is like a drop of a drop in the ocean. Like what?
That asks people to rate their life as a whole on a scale from 0 for the worst possible life, 10 for the best possible. How do they rate their state of life these days?
Top of the rankings again this year are the Nordic countries.
The World Happiness Report 2026 just dropped. Finland is the happiest country in the world for the 9th consecutive year. Denmark 3rd, Norway 6th. These are not poor countries. These are not countries without problems, but they consistently produce happier people. And here is what those countries have that Britain does not.
They do have a lot of prosperity, but importantly, that wealth is distributed much more equally than we find in other places. The second thing is they've got a healthy life expectancy, wonderful public health systems that are affordable. The third element is social support.
These findings are a real challenge to other countries if they want to be happier, to study how the Nordic countries do it.
Strong social trust, community infrastructure, genuine work-life balance, and family support systems that are built into the culture rather than fought over politically. But here is where it gets really interesting. Thailand ranks 66th in gender equality. It has more poverty than the UK, less empowerment by every ethnicist metric, and Thai women report higher happiness than Thai men, not the reverse. The Philippines ranks 20th in gender equality, best in Asia, and reports relatively high well-being despite economic conditions.
Yeah, the Philippines is mainly a poor country, but from what I've seen, it's a beautiful country.
That dwarf British challenges. What do these places have in common?
Why is this?
The value and importance of the family as a centerpiece, the links across generations that other countries strive to maintain.
Family structure, collectivism, a cultural framework that does not tell women their domestic role is oppression and their independence is the only path to fulfillment. The research is consistent and it is devastating for the ethnicist narrative. Urban Thais have 9 times higher depression rates than rural Thais. As westernization spreads, happiness drops. That is not a coincidence. That is a pattern. And the 2026 World Happiness Report identified something else that should concern everyone.
So there's big gender differences here, which comes up a fair amount. So for girls, we see that mean life satisfaction is the highest at light levels of social media use, like less than an hour. If social media is so great, then why would the people who use it the most have the lowest well-being? And that's especially what we see among girls. And another interesting result among girls, you look at those with the highest life satisfaction, you choose a 10 on that 0 to 10 scale.
Okay, I'm gonna end the video here. If you enjoyed my commentary, let me know. Please like, subscribe, comment, and I will leave a link to the original video down below. either in the comments or in the video description. But once again, this is PRE, Prince Reacts Entertainment, and my name is Darius, and I appreciate your viewership. I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Have a good day.